Hi, I'm Audra Burns from Dartmouth-Hitchcock, and welcome to our virtual roundtable series, Heads Up, Coping Through COVID-19. Today's episode is going to talk about navigating an unprecedented learning environment. I'm pleased to introduce our panel of experts today. Amanda Isabelle, Superintendent at Mascoma Valley Regional School District. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, thanks for having me here today.
Levi Skarupa, a sixth grade student at Mastricola Upper Elementary School. Hi, Levi.
Hello, I'm excited to be here.
Great to have you. And Erica Wood, a sixth grade teacher at Chesterfield School. Hi, Erica.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I'm so great to have all three of you for this important conversation. So Amanda, let's get into it. This pandemic has caused students, teachers, and faculty to really adjust to working and learning from home. And now most have transitioned to a hybrid schedule of in-person and remote. So let's talk about how your school district has navigated these changes as educators and how you supported students and families.
So if there's one thing I've learned in this pandemic, that nothing will stay the same, everything will change. So we have had to learn to adapt, to be flexible, to really work hard to make sure that we were ready for the next thing that was going to be thrown at us, no matter what it was. We're fortunate here in Mascoma to be able to offer some in-person learning to most of our kids, K through 8, or to have kids on a remote academy schedule, which has been a fully remote program that we've been able to offer kids. So parents were able to make that choice. We really worked hard. If you remember last spring, so a year ago, we really were thrust into remote, right? Everyone in the state went directly remote. So that was a big challenge for us. And we really did the best we could. And I think teachers all across the state stepped up to that challenge and met it and did great things for kids. I think kids stepped up to that challenge and did great things. And I think parents were there and communities there were there to support us. But what we found there were some holes, there were some gaps. And it was very, very important that we open the dialogue between the schools, the SAU office, and the teachers and the parents and the students. So we really worked to involve everyone in how we listened to what needed to be better. We listened to what worked, and we worked to make a program for kids this fall that could best meet those needs. So, as parents started to, one great quick little story that I have is that I had a mom in kindergarten, right? Her daughter was doing an art class. And in that art class, it was great. The teacher was sending an email because we really didn't have, a lot of Zoom meetings or Google Meet set up. So the teacher was sending an email to parents. Well, this was an at-home working mom. And she was like, great, this is a great assignment. The only problem is my daughter can't read. So she couldn't read the email to do the assignment. It was a great assignment, but the parent had to take time away from work to be able to read the email to do the assignment with their daughter. So that was one thing that we were able to learn and adapt and change. So we've really worked hard to create a partnership so that everyone knew that we were working together for that common goal to continue to educate kids. So listening, I'll say, was a key piece of how we've adapted and changed as we've moved between in-person and remote learning.
Mm-hmm. And listening and flexibility, like you mentioned, on both parts for the teacher and the parents. And it's been a great partnership. Our teachers are fantastic with having to adapt and change. And I myself am a parent, and I work full-time, my husband works full-time, and we have 2 kids at home as well. And so learning to adapt and adjust. And I certainly would have rather have helped with art projects instead of geometry and science, but that's another subject. But we do have Levi here who is he's a student, and this is such a great perspective that we're going to get from you, Levi. So let's talk about your experience with this firsthand as being a student. When the pandemic began and your school went fully remote, what was the most challenging things for you?
It was really challenging to navigate Zoom and also to figure out what work we had to do on a computer and what work we needed to print out.
And I think one of the greatest things that you're probably learning is that you're adapting. You're adapting to changing and learning different ways. So what a great skill set for you to have. So let's talk to Erica, because you're not only a teacher, but you're also a mom of 3 school-age children. Talk about having your hands full on both sides. So how did you balance your responsibilities as a teacher and as a parent when school moved to remote learning during COVID-19?
Yeah, so it was difficult at first. There were definitely times that I felt like I wasn't doing either my mom job or my teaching job well. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and in an imperfect situation that COVID-19 presented us, it was really hard to come to terms with that. But I would say that most of what helped me to help both my students and my own children was to really be specific about my expectations. We created a really good schedule in my house, and we stuck to it no matter if we were fully remote or if we were hybrid. We have an at-home school schedule that is posted all the time. Everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do, even if I can't be there because I'm in a live meeting to facilitate. There's a lot of responsibility that my kids stepped up into, which was a good and a bad thing, because I think they did have a lot of, they had to really step up to some things that I don't think developmentally they were ready for, as far as being self-directed and organized. I also was pretty upfront about my needs with my supervisor and my own home situation, that I had 3 kids, that I was going to have to build a schedule that would work for both of us, particularly last spring when there wasn't even childcare available. You couldn't even send your kids to childcare. So I was very vocal about my own needs in my own home as well. And I was very lucky to work in a school where my supervisor was not only willing to listen, but wanted to make it work for everyone.
You bring up 2 really great points that I think that we can't hit home enough about making sure that we have that balance and making sure that we set those realistic expectations, because we never, as parents, planned for this, planned to be educators, and you as a teacher as well, never really planned to have to teach this way. So I think just it's important to remind us all that have that balance and that expectation, and like you said, have that conversation with your supervisor. That's a great thing that people need to remember. It's okay to reach out for help, and it's okay to explain your situation. So thank you for that. So Levi, now that your school has transitioned to a hybrid model, what difficulties have you experienced adapting to this style of learning, and what do you like about it?
It's sometimes hard bringing stuff back and forth between like doing work here at home and then needing to bring it back to school. And sometimes I will forget to bring things to school, but I really like that when we're doing hybrid, we can change things up. I have 2 days at home just to chill. And then Wednesday and Thursday, we're back at home or back at school, like back on top of things.
Yeah.
And I also get to see my teacher and my friends.
That's important. I think having that social, access to your friends is other than just seeing them on the computer, for sure. And like you said, chill time is very important. So it's good that you're working that into your schedule. So Amanda, parents are also adapting to their kids' hybrid model. I feel like I'm still adapting a year later. So how can we help our children stay engaged and not fall behind with their schoolwork and their grades? And how can families help their children stay connected socially and have that chill time like Levi just mentioned?
It's so hard, right? We're always adapting, we're always changing. But what I would really stress to parents is not to wait till you're at that point where you're beyond frustrated with the situation, right? So when parents start to know that things are going awry, things are not going the way that they had hoped, to reach out, call the teacher, call the principal, get in touch with your school. Don't wait until things are a real mess and you feel like all hope is lost, and so you just want to give up and have it all become chill time and no real school. So I know that a lot of our kids, and especially in the middle school, right, want to have connections with their peers. They want to have, there are some extracurricular activities that they want to take part in. So it's very important that parents are reaching out. Schools have a lot of things in place. We have guidance counselors that can reach out and help. Most schools now have social workers that are able to come out and help. Most schools really were still able to run like their drama clubs, still ran some sports, so that we were able to, even if kids were not in school on a certain day, like it might have been, Levi might have had a, at-home day, he still could get to school and still see his friends if he played soccer or basketball or some other sport, or if he chose to be part of the drama club, he could be part of that. So we really encourage parents, and I think it's very key to reach out before things get really bad, especially if you're seeing your son or daughter struggle socially, emotionally, right? Starting to feel sort of depressed, reach out to the school, get some help. We are ready to help you do that. We're here to help and make sure that the kids are not only receiving what they need academically, but also socially as well.
That's a great reminder that schools have these resources in place and don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you for that. So Erica, what tips do you have for parents who are working from home, but also have to assist their children during remote school days?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would definitely say that setting a structured schedule is like step one. When I set up a schedule that worked around my own teaching time, and I set it up so that I could assist my kids in those gaps of time that I had available, that made it feel a lot more approachable for myself. Also, setting up your own space. So each of us in my home, we have 4 learners, well, 1 teacher and 3 learners. We each have our own dedicated workspace. And, sometimes that looks like my home office, which has been kind of turned into a shared classroom. I was working from the rec room in my basement so that I could have a quiet space when I was hosting live meetings. So setting up a space and making it comfortable so that you feel like that's going to be a good place for you to get work done, I think is really important. And also knowing that you have a circle of people that you can ask for help. So my mother-in-law was instrumental in assisting us. And so she was in our inner circle all through this pandemic. And our neighbors also were in our inner circle. And we knew that we could ask them for help if we needed it. So having those people that you can reach out to, like Amanda was saying, is, I think, a really instrumental piece in having this be successful for everyone involved.
Yep, leaning on those resources is important. And I liked how you talked about making sure that we have individual space set up, because I feel like, at least for me at the beginning, it was, temporary space for all of us, because we didn't really quite know how it was going to be. But finding that space where we can really make sure our desk is comfortable and we have the stuff that we want, so we don't feel like we're in a temporary situation, and making sure the kids have access to what they need on their desk and their space. That's a really great observation. So Amanda, people who live in rural areas, like we have here in New Hampshire in the North Country, they may have limited access to broadband or high-speed internet. And low-income families might not have access to computers or the internet in order to be successful the way that we're trying to run schools these days. So how are school districts such as yours helping families manage these challenges?
So we felt that it was very important, and I think we are just very similar to every other school district in New Hampshire. We wanted to make sure our kids had that opportunity, or we removed any barrier that was there so that kids could learn remotely, right? So like Levi talked about, Zoom was very important, that if we were going to have kids on Zoom, that we made sure that they had the technology and could run the technology to make that happen. So we wanted to make sure that we sent our kids with that technology, and it was very important that it was consistent technology too, right? We didn't want to have kids that were on one type of computer easily accessing things and kids on an older computer because that's what they had at home. not able to access. So it was important that we sent devices from school. And I think many schools have seen that. There's a one-to-one, so a computer for every child initiative. And I think that was key in making sure that we leveled that playing field for everyone. Everyone had the same opportunity. We struggle in this district with connectivity, right? So there's limited cell service in some areas, limited internet, or at least high-speed internet. I can say as a mom with 2 kids working, that if one of my kids happened to finish their lesson for the day early and hopped on, I don't know, their Xbox, that might have drained some of the internet connectivity for me as a parent. So that made it hard. I see Erica's nodding. So that made it hard, to maybe have a meeting or something that day for me home with my kids. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of leveled that playing field also. So we did provide anyone that needed it with one of those mobile hotspots. So we had those already in our classes, in our schools. So we were able to hand those out to kids and parents, anybody that requested it, we were able to do that. And that has been a game changer, I think, for a lot of kids across the district. We also had teachers that have no internet. So we had to make sure that we did that for them also. We're a fairly rural district. So we had to make sure that, our teachers were also able to teach from home and had the devices and the opportunities that they needed. And I will say, sometimes we just couldn't make it happen. So we would have people go, teachers driving paper packets to kids, right? Books, crayons, dice, whatever you needed to create an art project or a math project. We had parents and we had teachers that would come to the school and pick things up. We had teachers deliver. We were also fortunate enough to run our school buses. So our buses would run the bus routes and drop off lunches to kids. Well, in that run, we also would say, hey, we know so-and-so's computer broke, or we know so-and-so needs a paper packet or needs a new reading book. We were able to make those drop-offs and pickups as well. So you really just found a lot of innovative thinking as we moved through with this, and a lot of people just willing to do a lot for kids to make sure they were able to get what they needed to learn.
Yeah, you just mentioned exactly what I was going to say about this. Sounds like the perfect example of innovation, and what your district has done has been very innovative, especially with the ability to take supplies on your school bus routes and make sure every kid had access to what they needed. So that's really great to hear. Erica, so how do you help your students and their families manage the transition from in-person to remote to hybrid? Because as Levi mentioned earlier, one of his challenges was making sure that he had all the stuff that he needed where and when he needed it. So how are you helping your students respond to that?
I would say the most important thing I do is I utilize a tool called Class Dojo, and it is a communication tool. And I do weekly messages with every pertinent piece of information. I send them out on Sunday nights. I can see who's viewed it, and if someone hasn't viewed it, I can directly email them. And that has been instrumental in just keeping everyone all on the same page. We also have something called Swift Reach messages, which go home. I can have my principal send home a message that gets sent as a text message to my families if there's like an immediate change. And I also feel like I've been really trying to take parent input and sort of develop what's going to work best for them. I know that families are all in unique situations. They have kids in multiple grades. We had a slow rollout of hybrid in my school. So younger kids started coming back first, and then we worked our way up to older kids. And that was really confusing for families because they had to keep track of so many different people. So one thing I've done is I've made all of my at-home work digital. So there is no bringing back and forth materials. And that has alleviated a lot of stress for my families.
Yeah, not only going digital, think about all the printing costs that we're saving schools from all the papers and everything. So it's great to see how schools have adapted with these apps. And I think from the parent point of view, I find it so much more helpful now. I feel so much more connected to what their grades are, what their progress is, more than I ever have before. So that's been a benefit as well. So Levi, before we wrap up, let's talk about, any advice you might have for other kids to help improve their experience with hybrid and remote learning.
What really helps me is always emailing my teacher if I ever have a question, and also just asking questions in class, because like knowing more information about what you're doing always helps me a little bit more with the project that I'm doing.
That's really great advice, and I think speaks to what Amanda and Erica also talked about ask for help and ask the questions, and the resources are available. So thank you so much to the three of you for joining me today. This has been a really great conversation. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much.
So in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about overcoming challenges of learning environments with the focus on mental health. You can view past Heads Up Coping Through COVID-19 on our Dartmouth-Hitchcock YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Take care.